The throne hall of Zathora Prime shimmered like no place a human had ever stood before. Crystalline pillars stretched upward, catching the glow of a ceiling that seemed alive with trapped starlight. Every surface glowed softly, as though the building itself was breathing. And at its center, upon a throne carved from black stone that pulsed with faint light, sat Emperor Korath. His figure was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shifted colors depending on his mood. Today they rested at a cool shade of blue, the color of disinterest. His court surrounded him, hundreds of beings dressed in layers of shimmering robes. They whispered to each other, in voices that clicked and hummed like alien music. Ambassador Malric stood before the throne, his human frame stiff with formality. Beside him, almost lost in the glowing floor, was Jaden, a 13-year-old boy from Earth. His messy brown hair stuck out in all directions, and his travel-worn clothes looked painfully simple against the splendor of the alien court. Ambassador Malric cleared his throat. "Your Highness, we believe that a friendship between Earth and Zathora would benefit both our peoples. Humanity may be new to the stars, but we bring creativity, resilience, and a willingness to learn." Emperor Korath's long jaw opened in a yawn, revealing rows of glimmering teeth. The sound echoed through the chamber like grinding stone. His scales shifted to purple, a shade of boredom. "Every cycle," the Emperor said slowly, his voice deep and resonant, "you humans send envoys with promises and speeches. Every cycle, I refuse. Why do you persist when your species offers nothing my empire requires?" Jaden shuffled nervously. He hadn't even wanted to come. His parents were scientists stationed on a nearby vessel, and this visit was supposed to be an educational trip. But Ambassador Malric had insisted that a human child would symbolize Earth's hope for the future. Now he stood trembling under the weight of 1,000 alien eyes, Korath's golden gaze suddenly fixed on him. "And what of you, youngling? What do you think your kind has to offer?" Jaden's mouth went dry. This wasn't in the briefing. We're good at solving problems," he said, his voice cracking halfway through. The alien court erupted in sharp, chittering laughter. The sound was mocking yet musical, like glass breaking in rhythm. The Emperor leaned forward, scales flashing orange, the color of amusement. "Problems?" he echoed. "What problems could an empire such as mine possibly face that would need human solutions?" Before Jaden could stammer out an answer, the heavy doors at the far end of the chamber burst open. Guards rushed inside, weapons glowing, shouting in their harsh language. Panic spread through the court. Emperor Korath's scales turned instantly red. Anger and alarm. "Explain this," he thundered. A trembling official threw himself to the ground. "Your Radiance, forgive the interruption. The Duskfang has escaped again." Gasps swept through the hall. Courtiers scattered as guards tightened their circle around the throne. Jaden's eyes darted across the vast chamber. From behind one of the towering pillars, a shape moved, huge, dark, and silent. Then 2 amber eyes flared in the shadows. The creature stepped forward, and Jaden's breath caught. It was larger than any animal he had ever seen, with 6 muscular limbs tipped in curved claws. Its hide shimmered between black and blue, shifting like liquid metal. Along its spine, sharp ridges glowed faintly, pulsing with an eerie lie. "The Duskfang," whispered Ambassador Malric, his face pale. "The sacred predator of Zathora." The beast stalked closer, ignoring the guards. Its eyes locked onto Emperor Korath. "Why don't you just kill it?" Jaden blurted without thinking. The ambassador looked horrified, but the Emperor answered, "The Duskfang cannot be killed. It is sacred, the living spirit of our world. We capture them, but none can tame them. All who tried failed, and many died." The beast crept closer, spines glowing brighter with each step. Guards raised their weapons, but none dared fire. The air thrummed with tension, heavy and electric. Then Emperor Korath's scales flickered with a strange mix of yellow and green. Amusement, and perhaps curiosity. He leaned back on his throne, eyes narrowing at Jaden. "Perhaps this diplomatic visit should be postponed," he said. Then with a slow, rumbling laugh, he added, "Unless the boy wishes to try." The court went silent. Even the Duskfang seemed to pause. "Me?" Jaden squeaked. Korath's laugh deepened, echoing like thunder. "Yes, human child. Tame that predator, and you may have all my planet." The words rang through the crystalline chamber, absurd and terrifying. The courtiers stared at the boy as though already mourning him. Ambassador Malric tugged at his sleeve, whispering fiercely, "Don't you dare!" But Jaden's gaze stayed locked on the glowing eyes of the Duskfang. Fear battled with something else inside him, something he didn't recognize until now. Courage. He swallowed hard, then lifted his chin. "All right," he said softly, but loud enough for the hall to hear. "I'll try." A stunned silence followed. The Emperor's scales shimmered, glowing gold with interest. The Duskfang's eyes narrowed, its muscles coiled like springs, and the entire throne room held its breath, waiting for the impossible to unfold. The chamber of Zathora Prime was silent, save for the low growl of the Duskfang. Its glowing spines flickered, painting the floor in shards of light. Guards held their weapons steady, but no one dared move. Jaden's heart pounded. His legs trembled. But he refused to back away. He remembered his parents' voices, their lessons whispered back on Earth during long nights studying wildlife. "Predators are not monsters," his mother would say. "They are problem solvers. Respect them, and they may respect you." He drew a shaky breath and lifted his chin. "Stay back," he called out, surprising even himself. "Let me try." The guards exchanged uncertain looks. Emperor Korath leaned forward, scales glowing with a curious green. "Do not interfere," he ordered. His voice rumbled with both command and amusement. "Let the boy meet his fate." The Duskfang prowled closer, its 6 limbs moving with terrifying grace. Its claws scraped the floor, leaving shallow grooves in the crystal. Jaden felt a shiver run through him, but he forced his feet to remain still. He fought quickly. The creature was hungry, that much was clear. "Food," he whispered, then louder, "Your Majesty, I'll need meat, raw." A ripple of laughter spread through the court, but the Emperor's scales shimmered yellow with interest. "Bring it," Korath commanded. A guard sprinted out and returned moments later with a platter piled high with thick cuts of raw flesh. The smell was sharp, metallic, and heavy in the air. The ambassador hissed in Jaden's ear, "Are you insane? That thing will eat you alive." Jaden shook him off, his eyes never leaving the beast. "Trust me," he whispered, though truthfully, he was trusting more in instinct than certainty. Slowly, he took the platter from the guard. His hands trembled, but he held the meat steady. He remembered another lesson from his father. Never show fear to a predator. They can sense it. Move calm, speak steady. "It's okay," Jaden said softly. His voice meant only for the Duskfang. "You don't want a fight. You just want a meal." He lowered the platter to the floor and stepped back 3 careful paces. The Duskfang's nostrils flared, catching the scent. Its amber eyes flickered between Jaden and the offering. Then, with a sudden lunge, it struck. One hooked claw speared a piece of meat, pulling it up to its jaws. Rows of teeth sliced into the flesh. Jaden's pulse raced. But he noticed something no one else seemed to see. The beast didn't lower its head to eat. It kept its gaze fixed on Jaden, refusing to break eye contact. "Smart," Jaden murmured. "You don't want to leave yourself vulnerable." The Duskfang devoured another piece, its spines glowing faintly brighter. Jaden tilted his head. Now that he was closer, he saw scars along its flank, some deep and jagged, others healed long ago. "They've been hurting you," he whispered, "trying to break you with pain." His words echoed faintly in the silent hall. Emperor Korath shifted on his throne, his scales unreadable. The Duskfang finished the platter, then sat back on its haunches. Its amber eyes never left the boy. The court murmured nervously. Jaden swallowed, then raised his hand slowly, palm down, not close enough to touch, just offering scent. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. "No one will, not if I can help it." For a tense moment, nothing happened. The Duskfang's muscles rippled as if ready to spring. The guards tensed. The ambassador nearly shouted for retreat. But then, unbelievably, the beast leaned forward. Its broad nose sniffed the air near Jaden's hand. The boy held his ground, heart thundering, breath caught in his chest. And then, the Duskfang sat back, its glowing spine softened to a calmer hue. A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. "Impossible," one courtier whispered. "It acknowledges him?" Emperor Korath rose slowly from his throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the floor. His scales shifted gold, the color of awe. "Remarkable," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. Jaden lowered his hand, but kept his eyes on the creature. "We'll need more meat," he said softly, "and no one moves unless I say so." The boy's voice trembled, but it carried the weight of authority. Somehow, in this vast hall of power and danger, the smallest human had become the center. The Duskfang crouched low, watching him, not as prey, but as something else, something new. The Emperor's laugh rumbled through the chamber, but it was different this time, less mocking, more astonished. "Perhaps," Korath said slowly, "the untamed beast has found its equal." The courtiers whispered. The guards shifted uneasily. The ambassador covered his face with his hands, and Jaden, standing alone before the predator, realized something terrifying and wonderful. The challenge had only just begun. The throne hall of Zathora Prime remained frozen in silence. All eyes were locked on the impossible sight. A human boy standing before the sacred predator of their world, and still breathing. Shadow and light played across the beast's scales as it crouched low, its spines glowing faintly. It should have lunged, should have ripped the boy apart. But instead, it simply watched him, waiting. Emperor Korath's scales rippled from gold to green, reflecting disbelief and curiosity. "What is your name, boy?" His voice boomed. Jaden did not look away from the beast as he answered. "Jaden!" The Emperor's gaze flicked to the court, then back to the boy. "Well then, Jaden, you have its attention. But tell me, do you truly believe you can tame Shadowfang?" Jaden blinked. "Shadowfang?" he asked. Korath gestured toward the creature with a clawed hand. "That is what we call it, the Duskfang, the untamable." Jaden tilted his head thoughtfully. He deserves a better name, one that belongs to him, not just to his legend. He paused, heart hammering. Shadowcrest, that's his name. The beast's amber eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Jaden swore the spines along its back glowed brighter, almost in response. Whispers spread across the court like fire. "He named it," one voice muttered. "No one names the sacred claw." The Emperor's scales rippled again, now glowing a conflicted mix of colors. "You dare give a name to what has defied us for generations?" "Everything deserves a name," Jaden said simply. "Especially a creature that's been treated like nothing but a weapon." For the first time, Emperor Korath fell silent. Shadowcrest shifted closer, muscles coiled, but movements steady. Jaden took another piece of raw meat from a second platter that had been slid across the floor. His hand shook, but he steadied it. "Trust works both ways," he said, offering the meat in his open paw. Minutes stretched like hours. The court held its breath. Then, with terrifying slowness, Shadowcrest leaned in. Its teeth, longer than Jaden's fingers, closed gently around the meat, barely brushing his skin. Gasps filled the chamber. The predator of legends had accepted food from a human child's hand. Jaden smiled faintly. "Good," he whispered. Then, with a courage that startled even him, he reached his other hand toward the beast's head. His fingers touched the creature's hide, warm and smooth, with faint ridges beneath the surface. Shadowcrest froze. Then, impossibly, it leaned into his touch. A low rumble rolled out of its chest, a sound deep and resonant, shaking the floor like distant thunder. Emperor Korath stepped down from his throne, disbelief written in the shifting colors of his scales. This is not taming," he murmured. "This is communion." Jaden kept stroking the creature's head, his voice calm and steady. "You've been trying to break him," he said without. "But he doesn't need to be broken. He needs respect." The court was silent. Even the guards stood frozen, weapons lowered. The Emperor stopped a few feet away, towering above them both. "No emperor in the history of Zathora has done what you have done today. Our prophecy tells of a ruler who tames the sacred beast and ushers in an age of strength." Jaden glanced back at him. "But I'm not an emperor." The Emperor's scales shimmered, shifting to a deep, reverent blue. "Perhaps not. Perhaps something far rarer." Jaden kept his hand on Shadowcrest's head. "I don't want your planet," he said firmly, But I do want 3 things. The court gasped again at his boldness, but Korath's eyes narrowed with interest. Speak. First, Jaden said. Earth and Zathora must form a true alliance. Not words, not promises, a real partnership. The Emperor's scales flickered, then steadied. Granted. Second, Jaden continued, end the cages, no more menageries. Create sanctuaries where creatures like Shadowcrest can live freely. And let my parents, scientists who study wildlife, help you build them. Shock rippled through the crowd, but after a pause, Korath nodded again. It shall be done. Third, Jaden said, his voice softer now as he scratched behind the beast's spines. I want to see him again. I want the right to visit Shadowcrest. The Emperor's scales glowed a warm golden hue, like sunlight breaking through clouds. That small human can most certainly be arranged. A murmur spread across the court, half disbelief, half awe. The sacred predator of Zathora sat calmly at a human boy's side. Jaden looked down at Shadowcrest, who blinked slowly, spines glowing in a soft blue light. For the first time since stepping into the throne hall, Jaden felt something he hadn't dared hope for. Not fear, not pressure, but belonging. And somewhere deep in his chest, he knew the bargain he had struck was more than an agreement between worlds. It was the beginning of something that could change the stars themselves. News traveled faster than light in the empire of Zathora. Within a single cycle, every council chamber, every outpost, every academy knew the tale. A human child had stood before the untamable Duskfang, touched its hide, and named it Shadowcrest. By the time Jaden's parents, Dr. Elric and Dr. Mara, rushed into the palace gardens, their son was already a legend. They stopped short when they saw him sitting beside the reflecting pool, stroking the massive head of the predator that had haunted Zathoran history for centuries. Jaden, his mother whispered, both relief and disbelief warring in her eyes. Is that? Shadowcrest rumbled, a low sound that vibrated through the ground. Jaden grinned. He's my friend. The beast stretched, spines glowing a calm blue, and settled its head back into the boy's lap. His parents exchanged a glance, the same one they had shared years ago whenever Jaden surprised them with some impossible feat. Only this time, the surprise was galaxy-shaking. Soon after, Emperor Korath summoned them all to the High Council chamber. 12 advisors sat in a crescent, their scales shifting between doubt, awe, and caution. The Emperor's voice filled the hall. Behold, he declared, the human child who did what no emperor before him achieved. He has not only calmed the sacred predator, but shown us a new way. Jaden sat nervously between his parents, Shadowcrest curled protectively at his feet. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One counselor rose, scales flashing skeptical gray. Your Majesty, humans are untested. They lack strength. They lack refinement. How can they be trusted as allies? Okray, no. Jaden stood, legs shaking, but voice steady. You've tried to control Shadowcrest with cages and force for generations. It never worked. I didn't try to be stronger. I tried to understand. That's what humans can offer, not just power, but different ways of solving problems. The chamber went still. Even the skeptical counselor lowered her gaze. The Emperor's scales shimmered gold as he lifted a clawed hand. Then let it be written, Earth shall stand as ally to Zathora. Applause filled the chamber, a chittering chorus that rolled like a wave. But it was in the days that followed that the true legacy began. Jaden's parents were appointed to lead the creation of vast sanctuaries where creatures once caged would roam freely, studied with respect instead of fear. Ambassadors from Earth and Zathora drafted the first treaties of shared science, culture, and protection against threats beyond their stars. And Shadowcrest? The beast became a living symbol, walking freely beside the boy who named him. Yet Jaden knew, deep down, that this bond could not stay confined to palace walls. So one morning, as the twin sons of Zathora rose, Emperor Korath escorted Jaden, his parents, and Shadowcrest to the Wild Preserve, 1,000 miles of untouched forest and crystalline cliffs. The air shimmered with life, vibrant and untamed. Shadowcrest paced restlessly, spines glowing brighter than ever. He belonged here. Jaden knelt, pressing his forehead against the beast's hide. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me, for changing everything." The predator rumbled, a sound that felt like farewell. With a final nudge of his massive head, Shadowcrest bounded into the forest. He paused at the tree line, spines blazing brilliant blue, then vanished into the wild. Jaden blinked back tears, his heart heavy but full. He's free now. The Emperor's voice came softly behind him. And because of you, so are we. For centuries we chained what we did not understand. You showed us that strength lies not in breaking, but in belonging. The boy looked up at him. So, what happens next? Korath's scales glowed a calm gold, the color of promise. Now we prepare together for the challenges beyond our borders. Your people bring insight, mine bring power. Side by side, we will endure. Jaden nodded slowly. The thought of returning home no longer felt like an ending, but the start of something larger. As they rode back across the alien landscape, his mother leaned close. "Do you realize what you've done, Jaden? You didn't just change their empire. You changed how they see us." He smiled faintly. "I just made a friend." Above them, the twin suns sank low, painting the sky in streaks of violet and gold. Somewhere deep in the preserve, a roar echoed, not one of menace, but of farewell. And Jaden understood then, the bond he had forged would never fade. Shadowcrest would remember. The Empire would remember. And one boy's choice to act with respect instead of fear had reshaped the future of two worlds. The story was no longer about taming. It was about understanding. And that, he realized, was the greatest legacy of all.